Hey everybody, welcome to day 4 of Masterclass. Today we are going to talk about a very important topic if you are interested in making this a lifelong kind of journey for you, and that is how to read nutrition labels and what to focus in on. If you've ever picked up a box, kind of turned it around and thought to yourself, like, what am I even looking at here? All I see a whole bunch of numbers here. I see a ton of percentages. I see a bunch of words I don't understand, tons of things like that. Well, you are not alone. Today, we're going to be breaking it all down for you so you can walk away feeling very empowered and confident when it comes to your food choices. Understanding nutrition labels isn't just about information, it's about building awareness. Also, setting yourself up for success and getting yourself a little bit closer to your goals each and every single day. Now, food labels are on basically every single food item that you can buy. The only thing that food labels are not on typically tend to be fresh produce that you can pick. Oftentimes, like fresh meat you get from the butchers. So for instance, like if you're getting just a steak from the grocery store or something, usually there's not going to be a food label on it. Same thing if you're like just grabbing an apple from the grocery store, there's not going to be a food label on that either. But pretty much everything else is going to have a food label on it. So what I decided to do is we kind of have 5 sections that we're going to focus in on with our food labels. The first one is going to be just very much the basics of the food label. So what I would suggest to be helpful for you is that you grab something that has a food label on it. So I've got a can of Polar Seltzer here. Probably not the best thing because there's really not a lot of things in on it, but at least you can still see the food label on here and we can talk through things. So grab your favorite snack real quick or your favorite food, and we're going to teach you how to read a food label. So, like I said, we're going to start at the top of the nutrition label. And I mean this very literally, like literally right at the very, very top of it. At the top of the food label, you will see one of the most important things on here, and that is serving size and servings per container. Now, this is key because this is where food labels can get very tricky to you. Many people will skip right over this part and go right to the calories and miss the really important part about serving sizes and servings per container. But everything else on the label very much depends on that serving size or servings for a container. So, for example, if a bag of chips says that there's 140 calories per serving and there's 2.5 servings in a bag, it's pretty standard for most chip bags, and you eat the whole thing, you didn't eat 140 calories. You ate 350 calories because there is 2.5 servings in that one bag of potato chips. A little tricky thing, Pop-Tarts. Pop-Tarts, the food label is for one pastry. So even though there is two inside of the little bag, if you eat both of them, you actually ate 2 servings, not just one. So you always want to check this first. Serving size is going to be the foundation of everything. Now, back in, I believe it was like the 1950s or 60s or so, somewhere around there, there was like a whole act that got passed. Actually, I lied. It was like in the 80s. I'm like really dating myself. But in the 80s or so, there was this food act that happened where the FDA basically came out and was like, you have to have food labels on every single piece of food. Now, prior to modern day food labels, these things did not make sense at all. So you would have like serving sizes of like, I don't know, 1/8 of a cup of cereal or something like that, or very random things like 77 grams of like yogurt or something, things that just didn't really make like much logical sense. So thankfully now they're in a little bit more better sense of rounded labels, rounded serving sizes, and such forth. So always check that serving size to begin with, because that's really, again, going to lay the foundation for what you are able to have. As we move down, so remember, we're starting from the top of the label and going down. The next thing that you're going to see in really big letters is the calories. Again, this is where typically people like focus most of their attention on because we are very calorie driven with everything. But this is how much energy you are getting per serving. So remember, at the very top of the food label, it says servings and then serving size and then servings per container. Now, not inherently good or bad or anything, it's just a number. It's letting you know that if you eat 3 Oreos, it's going to be 140 calories, I think, or like 180 for those 3 calories. So the calories that are on there are for the serving size that was listed right above that. So you look at the calories again, we look for something that's a little bit, calorie friendly to fit into our daily diet or whatnot. But you want to check to make sure that the serving size for it makes sense. Because if you're like, oh, I'm going to have this 100-calorie snack, and then you realize that it's like 5 almonds, then like is that really like a snack that you want to have 100 calories on, or would you rather have 100 calories of something else? So as we go through this, you also want to pay attention to where those calories are coming from. So right below, so we had our serving size, servings per container, and then we had our calories. Up next, you are going to see total fat, total carbs, and total protein. My daughter is trying to pop in and say hi here. There. So when you are looking at those, this is where all of the calories are going to be coming from. So on here, um, you'll see where it says like the first thing it's going to say is total fat. So it's going to say, 0 grams, 12 grams, 15 grams, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing with carbs. You look next, it's going to say carbs. It's going to tell you how many carbs are in it. And then it's going to say protein. It's going to tell you how many grams of protein are in it. Now remember, again, I am going to stress this over and over and over again because this is very important. This is for per serving. Now, yes, if you have like a snack pack of like, I don't know, trail mix or something, more than likely the nutrition label is going to be for that whole entire package. If you have a giant Costco size bag of trail mix, the nutrition label is going to be for 1 serving of that package. So when you look at something and it's saying like 4 grams of fat, 20 grams of carbs, 5 grams of protein, that is per serving of that. So if you are doing something like, counting your macros, counting your calories, and say you want to make a sandwich. Well, typically you need 2 pieces of bread for a sandwich, but most of the time nutrition labels for bread are only um, in 1 slice increments. So you want to make sure that whatever it was that you did, you're going to double that, and now you have your calories for what you are having for that particular food item. Now, a little bit of math that you can do here. Each gram of carbs, fats, and proteins give you a certain amount of calories. Carbohydrates and protein are going to give you 4 calories per gram, and fat is going to give you 9 calories per gram. So when you look at a food label, if it's like 100, so say like like an applesauce pouch, and say that it's got 25 grams of carbs in there. And you look to see that the calories say that there's 100 calories in it. Well, that makes sense because, applesauce is purely carbohydrates. It's got 25 grams of carbs in it, and we know that you get 4 calories per gram. Makes sense. Here's where it can get a little tricky. A food that is high in fat might be lower in volume, but still very calorie dense. So a great example of this is the thing that we all love to hate is peanut butter. I know, if you've never weighed out an actual serving size of peanut butter, it's very depressing. I'm not gonna lie, it's really depressing. So peanut butter is mainly fat. 1 serving of peanut butter is typically about like 2 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons of that is going to have about 15 grams of fat in it. So you do 15 times 9, you get your caloric amount, but that's for like a very, very small amount of food. Whereas you could have that same amount of calories, but with more volume if we chose something that was a little bit less than fat. those are things that once you get into like the more nuanced parts of tracking your calories and macros that we can talk about. But for right now, we're just trying to learn about how to really look at these food labels. So let's break down what these kind of things look like. So first top of thing, we saw fat. Remember fat? How many grams per calorie? 9. I knew you remembered that. This is really important for hormonal health and nutrient absorption. You really want to look for healthy fats, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, things like that, and be mindful of trans fats or excessive saturated fat. The good news for us is that trans fats are banned, so that's not even going to be on the food label. But if it's a very like well-structured food label, it'll probably say how many grams of polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, and saturated fats are on there. So again, if you're getting really deep into your macro tracking, you can look at that and make your choices from there on what you want to have. Carbohydrates, the next one that's on there. These are really important. They're sources of quick energy. You're going to see 3 things for carbohydrates: total carbs, fiber, and sugar. Okay. Whatever it says for fiber and sugar is what's going to make up that total carb number. Fiber is amazing for digestion and satiety, which satiety just means that it keeps you fuller for longer. You really want to aim for high fiber options. So the closer that fiber number is to the actual total number of carbohydrates, then you know that that is a very high fiber food for you. Added sugar is the not so great part. These don't add any nutritional value and can really spike blood sugar. So you really want to watch this number if fat loss or energy crashes are of concerns for you, or if you are somebody that is suffering from any of type 1 or type 2 diabetes. Now, here's where, again, it's going to get a little tricky. I only want you to worry about added sugar. Added sugar on the nutrition label means that it's basically that white table sugar, that cane sugar that is added into the food itself. If it just says sugar normally, then that's going to be just the natural sugars um, that are in that food to begin with. So something very easy as an example for that, again, I'll go to my applesauce. Applesauce it should theoretically just be apples, then that's it. So when you look at the carbohydrates, it's going to have some fiber in it because it's a fruit or a vegetable, and that's where you find your fiber. And then it'll say sugar underneath it. And that's just the natural sugars that are occurring in the apple itself. Now, if it said added sugar, like 2 grams, 3 grams, 5 grams, something like that, that means that they added additional kind of that white table sugar into that food item itself. So you really want to look and limit the amount of added sugars in your diet. So when you're looking through that food label, and we'll talk kind of about like if you're stuck between 2 different brands of food, which one to get, pick the one that has the lower added sugar in it. The last one that you will see on there again is protein. So remember, protein and carbs each give you 4 calories per gram for that. Protein really helps with your muscle repair, your appetite control, and helping you feel full or that feeling of satiety. You really want to look for those higher protein options to stay satisfied for longer, especially for meals and snacks. If you find something, and here's where food labels can be a little tricky, they'll say something like high in protein or whatever, and you're like, sweet, this must be like an awesome snack for me. And you flip the darn thing over, and underneath protein, it says like 5 grams. And you're like, well, that's like not really, that's like half an egg. That's not really like high in protein at all. But they tricked you to thinking that it is. But because we are learning all about how to read food labels, not going to get past you there. So when you're looking through all of these food labels and such forth, you really want to think quality over quantity, especially with um, fats and carbs. Okay. So next up, as we go down onto the food label, the next part you're going to see is kind of a little bit lower, and it's going to say like nutrients underneath it. These are kind of the smaller little things that are added into or are present in the food that you are looking at. They are fiber, calcium, iron, potassium, and sodium. So a lot of these things are just naturally occurring in the foods to begin with. Some of the foods may be fortified with it. So like a great example of that is like orange juice. It'll say like fortified with calcium. So they added calcium to the orange juice itself, or some bread products will say fortified with iron. So they added a little bit of iron into it and such forth. You really want to focus in on fiber, calcium, iron, and potassium. Those four things. I say this because most people generally are not getting enough of these. These are crucial for energy, muscle function, and long-term health. So remember, fiber is also going to be right underneath where it says total carbohydrates. And we really want that fiber number to be as close to the total number of carbs possible. The big kind of, um, I guess like yellow flag that you want, or red flag that you want to look for, is the sodium. You don't need to fear salt at all. But if you're mainly eating a very highly processed food diet, then it's definitely something that you want to monitor, especially if you're dealing with any type of water retention, blood pressure, or any type of inflammation. If you're eating mainly a whole foods, natural diet, we'll say, way of eating, then sodium's not really something that you have to be concerned with, because sodium is really only used as a preservative in food to make the food last longer on the shelf. So if you're somebody also that you've got some hypertension issues, or you have other type of like cardiac issues, blood pressure issues and stuff, really hone in on that sodium amount to make sure that we are still in a safe range. Now, some of the things that you may have already in your pantry and you don't realize, one serving of it could be your entire recommended daily amount of sodium for the day. So really, really look at the food label. You want that sodium amount to be as low as possible, because it also means that it's closer to its natural state on that food label for you. Again, all of this is just about awareness. We're not trying to like fear monger you or make you super confused or anything like that. It's just being aware of what's actually in the food that you are eating. The last part that we'll kind of go through real quick is the ingredients list. This is one of probably the most important but overlooked areas. People are starting to be a little bit more cautious and cognizant of the ingredient list as kind of more things are coming out about what is, supporting our health or what's not supporting our health. So I'm going to give you a three kind of quick rules of thumb that will really make life easier when you're trying to decide what food to purchase. Number one, shorter is better. The shorter the ingredients list, the better that food is going to be, typically, for the most part, generally for you. We really want to strive to have foods that are what I call typically single ingredient foods. So it's a piece of chicken, it's a piece of broccoli, it's a cup of rice, and that's it. So if you look at that ingredients list and it's like, and you say we'll use rice for an example. You look at the ingredients list, the ingredients should just say rice, and that's it. Maybe like a little bit of like salt or some seasonings or something in it, but the main thing should just be rice, and that's it. So here's where it gets tricky. When you have, say we'll keep using rice as an example, and it's like those Uncle Ben, like steamable rices or microwavable rice. When you look at the ingredient list for that, that's going to say rice, and then it's going to have some type of oil, some type of preservative, and some type of like seasoning, flavor, spice, whatever on there. Again, we're not trying to do fear mongering here. We're just trying to build awareness. So know that if that is the option that you are choosing to go with, like a microwavable rice, there's going to be some added ingredients in there that are not found in just like your regular bag of rice that you would just boil yourself. Also, words you can pronounce usually means it's a little bit better as well too. Some of the stuff, if you look at it and you're like, that sounds like 11th grade chemistry class, maybe kind of think about if that's like the actual food that you want to get. And this all ties back to that single ingredient food. You get a thing of tortilla chips, it should say, corn flour, avocado oil and salt. Those are single ingredient things that are right in there. It gets tricky when you get these highly processed foods and all of a sudden you have these things that like these words that kind of look like some like 1800s like witch's curse at you and you're like, I don't know what any of these foods or these ingredients are. So really stick with the things that you can pronounce. The shorter the better. um, the last part is that the first few ingredients are what's going to matter the most. When you look at a food label, whatever is the first ingredient listed is what is the most plentiful and um, is the most in that particular food. So it goes in order from largest all the way down to smallest. So here is another great tip that you can do where you're going to kind of feel really empowered and on top of everything. Say you are looking at for some sweet potato tortilla chips or something. I'm picking on chips today. I don't know why, because it's really easy. But say you grab this bag and you're like, ooh, sweet potato tortilla chips. I know that sweet potatoes are like really good for me. Do they have a lot of extra vitamins and nutrients in it? I think this is going to be a better choice. You flip that bad boy over. If sweet potatoes is not the number one ingredient, then it's not a sweet potato tortilla chip. If it's like third or fourth down there, then that means that it's like just a small amount of sweet potato is actually in there. So you really want to look at that in the ingredient list and make sure that the food that you are trying to buy is the first or second ingredient on the list for you. Okay. Um, Also, here's where people might get a little upset here. If sugar or syrup is one of the first three ingredients that are on there, it's basically a dessert. I'm not gonna lie. Even if it's marketed as healthy, it's basically a dessert. So if you're looking at like juice, for example, and you're looking, you're like, all right, like I see like some cranberry juice, and then I see this like cranberry juice cocktail. Like, why don't like what's the difference between these two? Flip those bad boys over to look at the ingredient list. That cranberry juice cocktail, the first ingredient that is on there is sugar. So you know that even though it says that it's supposed to be cranberry juice, the most plentiful thing that is in there is going to be sugar. Whereas if you look at just a regular cranberry juice, it's just going to say cranberries and that's it. Cranberries and probably filtered water or something like that. So if sugar or syrup or any of those things are in the first couple ingredients in there, you can look back up at the carbohydrate spot where it has those total added sugars, and I bet that number is pretty high on there. So you want to look out for kind of hidden sugars, so corn syrup, cane juice, agave, kind of stuff like that. Again, if you're tracking your calories and your macros and stuff, some of these things you won't really have to worry about at all, but these are really simple, like little things that kind of get like hidden in there, and then just the name gets changed to make it look like it's a healthier thing than it actually is. Also look for artificial sweeteners, especially if you are somebody that really is very sensitive to them. I know like for myself, I can't have artificial sweeteners because it gives me a migraine for some reason. So I really have to look for making sure that there's no artificial sweeteners in a lot of the foods that I buy. And also too, you know, if you are somebody that suffers from any type of inflammatory kind of issues like arthritis, RA, or you just are very sensitive to oils, really look to see what type of oil is being used in there. If you are somebody that gets chronic inflammation from like soybean oil or corn oil or canola oil and such forth, you really want to look at that to make sure that you're getting kind of the food that you're expecting out of there. So remember, whole foods don't need labels. So if you're eating mainly from the earth, kind of fruits, veggies, proteins, stuff like that, like some of your starches and everything, you're already winning and you don't even have to worry about a food label. Food labels are going to be pretty much on things that are shelf stable in a box, in a can, in a bag, stuff like that. But just knowing what to look for and how to read through these things are what's really important to make sure that you're making the best choices possible for yourself, your family, or just for longevity purposes. So let's make this kind of like real life friendly because I don't want you to go to the grocery store and be like, oh my God, I have to spend 30 minutes like figuring like 30 extra minutes to my grocery store trip, try to figure out how like what food I should get. When you go grocery shopping, first thing you do, flip it over. Don't trust the front of the box. The front of the box is going to have tons of buzzwords and stuff like that on there to make you pick it up and think that it's like something that's good for you. Flip the package over and see what's on there. And then compare brands. Two granolas, like if you're looking for some granola to add into like your yogurt, two of them can look the same, but one may have 3 times the amount of sugar as another one. And if you can't decide, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier as well too, if you're stuck between two similar items and you don't know which one to buy, pick the one that has more protein and fiber in it and less added sugar. So if you have like a Nate, and I'm just totally picking on these brands because they're just two brands that just popped up into my mind. So if you have like a Nature Valley granola and like a bare naked granola and you're like, I don't know which one I should pick, which one has higher protein and fiber? That's the choice that you should pick there because you're going to get more out of that food than the other one because of the added protein and fiber. When you're meal planning, use labels to balance your plate. So, for example, if your dinner has 40 grams of carbs from rice, don't also load up on a bunch of like sugary drinks or desserts. You want to kind of balance that out because you already are getting a proper amount of carbohydrates in there. Here's like the big, big, big thing that you want to remember is especially when you are snacking, read the serving size. I cannot stress that enough. Pre-portioned snacks, if you're tracking macros and calories, will make a huge difference because you won't have that tendency to kind of overeat. But if you're anything like me, sometimes I'm standing in the pantry and I'm eating 2 servings of chips while I'm trying to figure out if I actually want to eat chips or not. And it just happens. But if you know how many servings are in there, then you can at least account for that a little bit better. So I know I threw a lot of information at you. If you have any questions at all, please drop a comment below. Myself or one of the other coaches will get back to you. What I would suggest really is rewatch this live video with like a food item so you can kind of read through everything that you see. So that's your crash course in reading a nutrition label. It's not about perfection. It's just about being informed so you can make the best choices that serve your goals in your body. Every single small choice that you do adds up. And this knowledge is really what gives you the power to make the best choices for you, your family, or anybody else that you are with. You are now going to walk into a grocery store like that girl boss, like that boy boss, whatever it is that you like, and know exactly what it is that you're looking for and exactly what's going in your body, all because you know now how to read a food label. So if this helps you today, drop a thumbs up or leave me a comment below and tell me something you learned, a question that you have. Maybe there's a part of a food label that we missed that we didn't really talk about. Um, and how we can best help you make the best choices when you are at the grocery store. So it was great to see you. I hope you're ready for day 5 tomorrow. We're going to keep building on this momentum. And until then, keep making the good choices. See you later.